have the answer to every question that you've got.
Howdy, I'm Ciaran Warner. I'm a reporter working on a story about a cult called The Body. A lot of people in the comments are curious about like where this story came from. You know, it is strange that this shit landed on my desk when I'm in the Midwest, and you know, these people started in Alaska and they're still on the other side of the country and the other side of the world. So what am I doing here? I just want to explain where this came from because it's a wild fucking story. So at the start in 2016, I was writing articles for a paper in Minneapolis, and I was looking for stories all the time. And at some point, I overheard this conversation about a guy I had known when I was a teenager named Genghis Muskox. It was just unbelievable what I heard. Like, apparently he had been murdered in Alaska.
(911), where is your emergency?
I killed somebody.
Okay, what do you mean you killed somebody? What happened?
Everything I heard about this in the beginning was just totally unusual, and it was just screaming for press. So the short version of the story is that Genghis is hanging out with this drinking buddy, and they get in some kind of argument, and then it turns extraordinarily violent. There are three murder weapons in this case. There's an ice axe, there's a shotgun, and a rifle, a .30-06.
And the ice axe, the shotgun, and the .30-06 used in combination suggests rage to me.
But in 2016, when I picked up this story, what was happening at that moment was the killer took this plea deal that would see him do less than 2.5 years in prison.
You know, we heard a yell, for, somebody, I heard a yell for help.
And this is just one of these stories where the more you look at it, the more holes you see in the story. I mean, maybe Genghis threw a punch at this guy, like who knows? But it's obvious from the photos at the scene that Genghis, as soon as things got violent, Genghis tried to escape. But I mean, the self-defense argument is just silly. Like the killer was not injured. And then you have the rifle. Like what are you doing with the rifle after this guy is dead? Because you're protecting yourself. It just doesn't make sense. This case always looked like shit, but then you factor in like the statements that the killer made at the scene, which just don't seem like the statements of a man who had to kill one of his friends because he had no other choice. They are just bizarre.
Now, when we were walking up to the car, you told me that you executed him. That's kind of a strong word. So
I eliminated the target. The next thing I knew, survived, and I was ready to, go on to the next mission.
I just decided once I'd seen the crime scene, like, I'm just going to keep following this until the end. Now, I talked to a lot of people, and I heard all kinds of opinions. There were some stand-your-ground folks, but, I mean, the vast majority of people said things like this.
Were you surprised when you heard about Vermillion?
No, not at all.
No?
He's one of those people with a character flaw that, just the right amount of stress and just the right amount of bad luck was going to break it open. He was just one of those people with a big crack in his moral compass, just waiting for the right things to kind of align.
The fact of the matter is, we know it's a pretty horrific murder. Your behavior is just so extreme. It's just someone, emotionally disconnected and operating solely on, things you and I can't understand.
At a certain point, I found a source who claimed to have all kinds of information about this story that I didn't know. And we just started talking all the time.
I'm going to tell you right now, I could potentially have a lot for you, right? I could have the answer to every question that you've got.
Now, she's definitely in the stand your ground camp. She thinks the killer is innocent.
I'm looking at homicide that's obviously homicide that got pled down to manslaughter.
Buddy, whoa. back up just 1 second there, but okay.
What do you mean?
I mean, whoa.
It becomes clear, crystal clear, that she knows this guy, the killer, and she's been advocating for him in outrageous ways. I mean,
I had an encounter with God the day that I met Paul, which is the reason why I'm involved. I don't know that I ever told you this, but I approached him and I was like, I'm going to fight for you in every way I know how. And I talked to everyone.
And what makes it like super outrageous is that this stuff she's doing on the side, trying to exonerate this guy, it is the biggest conflict of interest I've ever heard of. It's the most outrageous conflict of interest, and some people in Alaska might know why.
I'm going to tell you, if you're going to find any political connections in this whole thing, it's going to be through me, not through them.
So I thought that was newsworthy, and then shit got real weird.
Is this the gal from Australia? Have you heard about the cult she's in? Don't tell her I told you, but yeah, ask her about the religious organization she's a member of.
Well, she's told me that she's religious, but that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah, they're religious.
Now, I didn't take this cult story seriously at first. Then in 2018, this cult story was like confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt.
How do I put this politely? I investigated her for quite some time while I was there, which caused us to clash. She was a member of a group that I would call a cult in Nikiski, which is pretty close by.
So for a long time, I just sat on this and worked on other things. And then in 2020, there's a goddamn global pandemic. The world is over. I'm sitting on the couch watching 100 seasons of Survivor. And then it just makes sense to go back to this story, to revisit this story. And I started interviewing cult experts and talking to survivors and just started like finding sources again. And as I was picking this up, like it just became very clear that the situation was far worse than I had thought it was in the beginning.
That's the first thing Jesus ever preached. Sex.
This missing baby, I don't know if it's in the cult, if it's, I don't know what happened to this baby.
You blaspheme the Holy Ghost, you have to die. You have to. Quickly. Today, he's dead.
And that, like, now these people were not in Alaska anymore. They had spread to Tonasket, Washington, and Australia. Now I just decided to use the internet to expose these mutants. Like, it was a step too far. It was a story that had a personal connection to me. Like, the information that I was hearing was so bad. Like it was time to, like, do something. And then this April, I got a tip from a concerned citizen in Washington who told me they had seen what I had put out there, and some people in this group had been arrested, and children had been rescued.
Are you referring to your daughter as property?
Yes, I am.
Wow. Okay. Well, your daughter who's a human being, is being taken into protective custody.
Now, I had been writing about this guy that had been arrested. I had written about this missing kid. So there was, sort of a trail to go back to for anybody curious. And it was just like pouring gasoline on this story when it came out in Tonasket and people could just Google this. And it kind of exploded on the internet. That's how you find an invisible cult. I mean, this won't happen again.